Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of Tigers Talk Rugby. Before we get started, I'd like to thank Tiger Vision for providing us with the facilities and the equipment to make this possible. We love doing this every week in and out, and hopefully in the next couple weeks we can get moved over to a platform like Spotify. So I just want to tie you all in the loop that we are working on that. We hope to make our way over to Spotify. And,
more user-friendly
platforms. Exactly. So on that note, I'm Ethan Richards.
I'm CJ Bakle.
And we're your hosts today.
Today we're going to talk a little bit about some Division 1A rugby, talk about the rankings that are currently put up for round 9, and then as well as we're going to talk about the finale of the World Cup.
Yes, of course.
So we'll get back to that for Ethan.
Heartbreaking.
So, anyway, let's D1A rugby.
Yes.
So we currently have the round 9 rankings, which were posted on Instagram
a couple days ago. Yeah, and this is Sunday, so that was posted before the weekend's matches. So that's what we're going to go off of when we talk about the rankings.
Yes. So the rankings, let's just say we have some things that we don't agree with.
Of course. But that's how it always goes when you look at sports rankings.
That's also true.
One of the main things that we were intrigued by was, yes, none of the teams have played matches yet, but the top 3. So you're looking at Life, Cal, and St. Mary's, and you're sitting there and previously in previous years, deserve to be in the top rankings. Of course, every year they dominate pretty handily the teams that they play. And but what we were interested in the fact is that none of these teams have played games yet, and we have programs like Navy and Kutztown
who have been dominating
already
their schedules. Yeah.
Right, like Navy is 7-0 right now.
Lost to Lindenwood this last
Excuse
weekend.
me. Yes, they
They're
just
7-1.
lost. They're 7-1 now because they literally lost yesterday to Lindenwood. Which is the team who is ranked next to them. They're 4. Navy was 4 and Lindenwood was 5 going into this game, and so that but that was Lindenwood's first conference match of the season, I believe.
It was their first match of the season, but like we said before, Navy went on a 7-0 win streak against basically the best of the D1A, and at least the best of who has been playing in the D1A of active teams.
Yeah. Their schedule has been. I mean, it's been a tough schedule. It's not like they were playing unranked opponents all for those 7 games they were playing. They were almost dominating valued opponents. They played a ranked St. Bonaventure, ranked Iona, ranked Kutztown, ranked Davenport, ranked Clemson, ranked Penn State, and they've won all of those games. So it's one of those things that you look at and you say, yes, those other teams haven't played a game, but is it disrespectful not to reward them with a higher ranking?
Well, I think it's tough to say that because, again, we have no evidence to base it off of, that if Navy is better than a St. Mary, Cal, or Life. Because, yes, in the past, Life, Cal, and St. Mary's have been amazing. Mm-hmm. I mean, again, last year, Life, Cal in the final. The year before that was Life, Cal in the final. Mm-hmm. And St. Mary's is always in the semifinals, it seems. Mm-hmm. So it's tough to say. But I do think that despite their loss to Lindenwood, because it was only a 12-7 loss, but right now Navy is looking very good.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
I think they are definitely the best currently active playing team, just because of their win streak and how they've been putting together wins pretty well.
Yeah,
They might have lost to Lindenwood once, but Lindenwood has always been a good team, but I think currently Navy has been looking the best.
It was also at Lindenwood, so it was an away game, and it was a 5-point loss. It's a tight game, especially going to Lindenwood and playing in that stadium. They have fans showing up, and that applies like an audience pressure to a away team at that stadium. And to me, when I look at that, like a 5-point loss, that means to me it could have gone the other way if it was at Navy. It could have gone the other way if it was at a mutual site. That is a tight game, and a game that you can say, yes, that day Lindenwood was better, but I think you can also turn around and be like, either team could have earned the win there.
So I guess you could also say that since it was Lindenwood's very first match, they've been able to prepare for Navy for a very long time.
That is true. They've had a couple months to prepare for a big game like this.
So they've had those several months to prepare. So would you say a 12-7 victory? Do you think that it should have been more, less, or or do you think it's just because Navy's pretty good?
I think Navy is a solid team. I think they've got very fit guys, obviously.
Right.
You're at the Naval Academy. And then they've got a great coach in Gavin Hickey. He knows the game very well, and clearly just from last year to this year, they've upped their game. And I think that trend will continue as long as Gavin Hickey is at their program. So I think I don't want to say 100% like Navy is a better program than Lindenwood just off of like one game, especially because they lost. But I don't want to be like, oh yes, this writes Lindenwood off as a much better team than Navy in every way. I think that means that they are an equally matched program.
Now,
The fact that they can come off of 7 games and still put a 5-point loss in against a fresh team.
I think a true test to see how well or how good of a team Navy is that they play Life University November 9th.
This weekend, yeah.
So they play Life University this weekend.
It'll be
it's going to have to be like, if they really want to be known as the best team in the country right now, I think a win over Life would put them.
I agree. I think if they beat Life, they would. I know later we'll have some quarrels with teams jumping teams that they lose to, but I think in this case it would justify them being above Lindenwood if they beat Life.
Yes.
That's for sure. Would questionably put them at number 1.
So.
All right, I think we've hammered in Navy.
Yes.
Navy's spot. They absolutely have the biggest pool of games to pull from. They've played 8 games already.
Yeah, the only other team that has played that much was also Kutztown. Congratulations to them winning the East, by the way.
Yeah, I don't think anybody if they go undefeated for the rest of it, Penn State can't catch them. That's definitive that they've won, right?
I'm pretty sure it is at this point in time.
So
congratulations to Kutztown. They've definitely been playing some tough teams. Their schedule has been riddled with, again, insane scheduled teams.
Kutztown has played Army. They've lost to Navy. They've played they beat Penn State, Notre Dame College, and St. Bonaventure. And so that is 5 ranked opponents with 4 ranked victories. That's a testament.
Pretty good.
Yeah, that's another one of those questions of whether or not they should be in that top 5 bubble. Because until this weekend, 4 of the top 5 hadn't played a game.
Right.
Now 3 of the top 5 haven't played a game.
Yeah.
So do you think that Kutztown could still break that mold as those other teams start playing games? Do you think that their already victory over the East won't allow them to go any higher since they don't have any more real heavy, sturdy tests ahead of them?
I actually think Kutztown won't go up higher. I think they'll go down lower.
Really?
The rest of the Mid-South also have to play through.
That's true. But the question, so the Mid-South, let's talk about the Mid-South.
Okay.
We've got Life at 1, Navy at 4, Lindenwood at 5, Ark State at 7, and Davenport at 9. These teams will start eating each other up. Yes, Clemson's in there, but we'll
talk about that later.
Yeah, they're not. We're talking about the top 10 right now.
Yeah, the top 10 right
and
now.
five of them are from the Mid-South, and all of these teams pretty much still have to play each other. Navy has played Davenport and Clemson, won both of those games, but Life hadn't played a game. Lindenwood just played Navy and beat them. What is Ark State's schedule? I'm not sure. I don't believe they've played a game yet.
No, I don't think they have either.
And so all of these teams, they still have, the chance to eat each other up and take each other out of this top 10.
So do you think?
So that's what gives the argument for a team like Kutztown to go up. Is the Mid-South has 5 teams where there's only been a few of those matchups that's been played. Mm-hmm. If feasibly Life can beat everybody in the Mid-South, and if they beat everybody in the Mid-South, do you believe that Davenport could drop out of the top 10? Do you believe that Arkansas State would drop from 7?
So Davenport I'm not really going to be concerned about because they're 9. So I'm not going to worry about Davenport. But the Ark State, Navy, Lindenwood, that's the bulk 3 that you should be probably looking at. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to say Navy's basically done with their schedule very, very soon. So they might stick at 4, 5, maybe even 6, around those 3 spots throughout the time. Mm-hmm. And Lindenwood, the only team I could really see them losing to is Life. Mm-hmm. So they're probably going to stay around the 4, 5, 6 area too. So the only other one in question is Ark State. So if Ark State, for some reason, goes on, they're just amazing, they play everybody really, really well, and they stay at that 7 spot or even go up, then I think other teams like Notre Dame College,
Penn State, BYU.
Yeah, some of those teams might be able to move back up into the rankings, and then, but as a consequence, that Kutztown could be dropping. But
so you believe that because the Mid-South is dominating that top 10 so heavily that no matter who beats who in the Mid-South, they're going to stay in that top 10?
Yeah, I think that's the case. Because
wow.
A lot of the times, the Mid-South, they could, like you said, demolish each other and eat each other. But at the same time, they they play the best every single week. And they're always close games. So unless Davenport ends up beating Life 61-0, I don't think there's going to be really any difference.
Much of a change. I can see that. I can understand that. I just think it's almost shattering for some of these programs like Kutztown that go undefeated in their conference and the highest they can reach is 6.
Yeah, and it's kind of sucks that there is the disparity in the scheduling because not everybody's playing at the same time. Everybody's Kutztown's basically done with their schedule and it's November 11th.
Right. Meanwhile,
is there their final game? That'll be that. That's it.
Yeah. Meanwhile, you've got a team like Life who starts their schedule next week.
Right. So it's not really. It's hard to see. It's hard to see and match up teams when they don't really play each other as often, or again, they're not playing all at the same time.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, because some of the cross-conference games, they do fulfill these rankings. When you look at Navy played Kutztown, beat Kutztown. But some of them
they don't
quite interesting. Notre Dame College, they lost to St. Bonaventure. And they're at 11, and St. Bonaventure is at 21. Obviously, St. Bonaventure lost their most recent game, and also lost to an unranked Notre Dame in that matchup.
St. Bonaventure is an interesting case for the rankings because they've only won one game, and that was against and that was against Notre Dame College. So to have them at 21 is probably a safe bet because, again, they did play Notre Dame College. It was a solid team, good coaching, solid side, great talent, right? Mm-hmm. But, again, they did lose to, Notre Dame, the Fighting Irish, not Notre Dame College.
Right.
So, and Notre Dame at the time, I think they were like 43rd.
Right, which is part of the reason why St. Bonaventure is dropping in the rankings. But it's just interesting because you look and is it a fluke? Was that game a fluke? It was a 3-point game. St. Bonaventure versus Notre Dame College.
Yeah.
Was that game a fluke? Was it? Do you look at that game and say this is the oddball of the season for both Notre Dame College and St. Bonaventure? Do you think
it's weird to say that because I don't want to call it a fluke because Notre Dame College is a really well coached side and they do have the talent, but at the same time it could be a little bit of a confidence thing where they went in thinking, okay, we could beat these guys. It shouldn't be that hard. Mm-hmm. And then St. Bonaventure came out of nowhere. They were really well prepared, and it could be that St. Bonaventure does play Notre Dame pretty frequently, so they've played them. They know what they're going to do. They've kind of seen what they could do. So why not prepare to that?
You'd give credit to Justin Hickey at Notre Dame.
Yes.
For being prepared against a program that they play relatively consistently. That's
so for Notre Dame University versus St. Bonaventure? I think Notre Dame University was definitely
prepared.
And they were playing at home.
That's true. A home game, it really does make a difference.
Yeah, it does make a difference. So for Notre Dame to beat St. Bonaventure, this is going to sound confusing. So I'm going to start saying the Irish. So for the Irish to beat St. Bonaventure, I think it was well
looks
prepared.
Better on Notre Dame than it does look bad on St. Bonaventure.
Yes.
Okay.
And then for the Notre Dame College, I think they're the Falcons. The Falcons versus St. Bonaventure. I think St. Bonaventure was more prepared for them.
So you think that looks better on St. Bonaventure than it does look bad on
Notre Dame. So
College.
it's an interesting thing.
All right, I see what you're saying.
So
that makes sense.
The win that they have over Notre Dame College, the Falcons, definitely helps them with staying in the rankings and keeping them at 21. But their loss to Notre Dame, I think, shows how Notre Dame's a really good preparing.
They're a developing program.
They're a developing program and really doesn't hurt St. Bonaventure as much as it helps Notre Dame.
Like earlier this semester, Notre Dame did break into the bubble, I believe.
The Irish?
Yes, the Irish broke into the bubble for a week. And then I believe they lost and fell back out.
They lost to somebody like Michigan,
it was Michigan.
Ranked.
Yeah, and so that's why they fell back out of the bubble. But it was just like something to note.
Right.
So yeah, I'm gonna round through to another group just to try to keep us moving a little bit. Let's talk a little bit about Big Ten.
Big Ten.
So you've got you've got Indiana and Ohio State. They've kind of been running the Big Ten this year.
Yeah. It seems to be the case for almost every year.
Ohio State's only loss is to Indiana. And so they're sitting at, I believe, Indiana at 16, Ohio State at 18. Do you think, Big Ten's coming more towards a close in their conference? I know a lot of those games have already been played, and do you think they've capped out? Do you think they won't be able to get any higher in the rankings specifically because their season's pretty much over?
It's again back to the argument that we had with
Kutztown.
With Kutztown. But the Big Ten, they have Notre Dame and not Notre Dame. My bad. Indiana and Ohio State have been solid sides, like historically have been really good, but compared to the East or the Mid-South, the Big Ten are not.
It's not as big of a challenge. There aren't any other real heavy-duty ranked opponents in the Big Ten.
Right.
It's like
It's really just Ohio State, Indiana.
Indiana. Yeah. But if you're one thing that for these teams in particular that I think is important, since their whole conference is going to be pretty much finished in the next few weeks, I think you have to treat them the same way that you treated Life, Cal, and St. Mary's. You can't move them. I think it'd be disrespectful to move them down. I could understand moving them up 1 or 2 after losses from teams that are above them. Like if Central Washington were to lose or Iona were to lose, and it just kind of bumped Indiana to 15 or whatnot. I could see that happening, but I think it would be very disrespectful to a program to pull them down in the rankings for not playing.
Yeah,
after you've already placed them.
I guess so, but like it's then also tough because then teams like Arizona, UCLA, Grand Canyon, and like Central Washington, who haven't really played a whole lot of their schedule yet. Like, what if all those teams end up doing really well and they're kind of battling up for positions, or they end up losing? So keeping those teams around there may help or not, but like again, there's still so much of the season to develop that we don't know. Like it's tough. It might.
Yeah, I just think like, all right, so you've locked in Indiana and Ohio State to be in this like at 16 and 18 as they've finished up their conference season.
And you want to just keep them at that
around there. I think it would be inappropriate to like be like, oh, Ohio State as some of the later games come around, Ohio State's now 23. Why would you do that to a program? Like I wouldn't understand that.
Fair?
Yeah, I don't think that would be fair to a program.
That's fine. That's fair.
So, speaking of 23, Texas A&M is at 23, which is one above Clemson. This is a conversation that we were kind of a little frustrated about when we saw this. Clemson beat Texas A&M earlier this season, 13-27 is Clemson victory at 27 points. And I know we are Clemson students and
despite
Clemson
the bias.
people. There is bias there, but at the same time, it was a handy victory. It's almost disrespectful to the Clemson program to be ranked below them after beating them definitively in this season.
I would love for somebody to tell me why Texas A&M is 23rd above, is just one spot above Clemson. I would like, even the fans, you could help to explain it. I don't understand it a whole lot. I could see where people could put the argument, oh, Clemson lost to Navy 55-0. That's a hard loss for Clemson.
Navy's ranked 4th. Navy is ranked 4th.
Yeah, and Navy's definitely, again, like we said, they're one of the best currently playing teams.
Right, and so you look at it, Texas A&M has played one game, and it's a loss to ranked 24 Clemson. And Clemson has 2 games and a win against 23 Texas A&M. How does that make sense to rank A&M above the team, directly above the team they lost to? Yes, it's been a couple months, but at the same time,
they haven't played anybody else.
They haven't played anybody else, right? It's aggravating. It's confusing. It's like at this point, we're looking at the rankings. Navy's above Lindenwood. Lindenwood beat them, but this ranking was out before that, right. So we can't be frustrated about something like that. But when you look at that bubble and you look at it and you say, Texas A&M is 1 rank above Clemson. We're both looking at each other just like, why?
I'm shaking my head right now. I just don't understand it.
No. So whoever does the rankings, we would love for you to reach out to us and explain your reasoning.
Right. And I would like to ask one thing. It's like, if you think that Clemson's loss to Navy hurt them so much that it's 24 and they should be behind Texas A&M, I challenge, what do you think would have happened with a Navy versus Texas A&M game?
Yeah, that's
what would you think would have happened?
That is a great proposal. That is a great question to ask.
So,
And on that note, let's move out from D1A because clearly you can tell we were getting a little riled
heated.
up.
We're getting a little heated right now.
Because that is, it's a frustrating topic. Now, unfortunately, let's move on to World Cup recap.
Yeah.
I
hate to say that it's a recap. I'm sad it's over.
It was great while it lasted.
It's been a great month and a half.
Yeah, until the last game, but
well, for you,
no comment.
So let's start at the start general, and then we'll move to the final.
Okay.
So I think as a Rugby World Cup as a whole, I think this was probably one of the best, if not the best. I could say it's one of the best because
I feel like some of that's recency bias.
What's that?
I feel like some of that is recency bias.
Well, there's some recency bias, but I would also like to I think the 1995 World Cup, being in South Africa with a South Africa win, and it's the first time after apartheid that this happened. Mm-hmm. That was a great World Cup.
That was
huge.
Yeah,
culturally.
I was about to say that had cultural implications.
But you could also say the same thing for this Japanese one, because really with Japan, Japan did this so well because they really expressed a lot of culture with this World Cup. They expressed that they are truly a good nation. The team did really well.
They made it out first of their pool.
Yeah.
It shows that they want to be a rugby nation and they want to be a top program.
And I think that
they
proved
it.
that they did. And that they're serious about it. And the people of Japan are rugby crazy.
Yeah, I think it was historical. I wouldn't say it was the greatest World Cup.
I think in terms of on-field production, I think it might have been one of the best because you saw upsets. You saw some big ones. You saw some close games.
That's
saw
true.
a lot of nail-biters.
The only part of the reason why I would argue against is obviously you can't help the weather, but you can plan for it.
Yeah.
And the fact that games were canceled due to weather that had implications on pool outcomes.
Yeah,
was part of the reason why I can't turn around and be like, oh yeah, this is definitively the best World Cup because there were errors like that were made that were I get it, whether it's dangerous, you don't want fans traveling. There's some real there's a lot to think about and a lot of safety concerns, but you've had years to plan for this as the World Rugby Organization. Mm-hmm. That you should know you're going in on typhoon season. You should know what to expect and come up with a plan. And that's why I can't agree with you on it being the best World Cup. Fair?
Okay.
Fair.
Fine.
All right.
Fine. But
now,
I do think that.
Now,
I guess if you were just this didn't happen, if the weather didn't happen, then
if every single game was played, I think it's very much an arguable front, especially because it had such a historical impact on the sport with Japan.
And again, it's the first non-tier 1 nation hosting a World Cup.
Yeah, which look at Japan now. You could consider them tier 1 after this.
I guess you could.
After this, we'll see how they perform in the next few years. Coming up towards France in 2023, but they might have just made the argument that they should be considered tier 1.
Yeah, and
because they won the Pacific.
Yeah,
and then they made it. They won their pool.
Won the hearts of everybody.
Won the hearts of the fans. No, but they've made an argument for themselves, and I love to see it. It's refreshing. So, moving on to overall pool stage. Most of the teams, other than Japan, that were expected to make it through made it through.
Yeah.
Which,
when we, reflecting back on our World Cup predictions episode, a month or a couple months ago.
Ways back now.
Yeah, a couple weeks ago. Because when we were talking about it, it's it's hard to say, that other team will be the top
Yeah,
of a pool.
it's still tough to be like, oh yeah, Argentina.
Oh yeah, Argentina is going to be the
Because-
second place team.
Right. And like, it's arguable, but I mean, you look at their history, you look at their like the stats, like
And then you're also looking at the teams that are playing.
right. It's just
It's like that's one thing
it
about
went
rugby.
mostly as expected.
Right. Yeah. That's one thing about rugby. Games go mostly as expected.
Yeah.
Now sometimes they don't because Japan and
No,
Ireland.
yeah, but I feel like Japan was an exception to that rule this year, and I think that's also because they're a program that is trying to make a name for themselves, trying to prove that they are a rugby nation.
So you're saying
Yeah.
that they were hungry and that's why they.
Oh, absolutely. So
They surprised. They did what was unexpected.
right now, some surprises in the knockout stages did happen.
That's also true.
New Zealand was the expected finalist from that side of the knockout stage, but they lost to England in the semis, which I don't think that was like oh my gosh, England beat New Zealand sort of like shocker, but I think it was also like a kudos, like that was, they were considered the underdog going into that game, and they handily defeated them.
Yeah, I think Eddie Jones is really good at planning for teams like New Zealand. Mm-hmm. And props to him because he had a really good game plan for that game. Like his entire team stuck to it. They knew exactly what they were going to do. And they were really, really well prepared against New Zealand. And I guess, like, I don't want to say New Zealand, lost that game. It's just England won that
dominated that game.
Yeah.
And then on the other side, there weren't too many real surprises.
South Africa. I mean, we said this earlier. South Africa was probably going to be in the final. We said this. We thought it was going to be, South Africa versus New Zealand.
Except for me.
Except for you. Yeah. But we all knew that South Africa was going to go to the final. I don't know.
That was so going back to
from us.
2 weeks ago when we did our semifinals and our finals, because last week we did the special homecoming edition. And so we talked about the finals. All of us had different outcomes. So I had England-South Africa finals with England winning. CJ had New Zealand-South Africa with New Zealand winning. And then Tyler Doolittle, who was a guest on that show, had New Zealand-South Africa with South Africa winning. So Tyler was right on the winner, but he was not right on the finalists. And I was right on the finalists, but not the winner.
I said the winner of England-New Zealand would win the World Cup. I was totally wrong.
You were the most wrong.
I was the most wrong.
Yeah.
I don't know.
But
that just kind of surprised me a little bit.
South Africa, like, they were physically dominating teams. Like, how they were playing the game, every single time they touched the ball felt like it was a positive gain in contact. Every time that they were on defense, it felt like every tackle was a positive tackle. It felt like no matter what other teams did, they either had to kick the ball or move backwards.
Yeah, South Africa looked strong. And they looked big compared to some of these teams.
They did.
Like, even when you looked at the first week of the World Cup, New Zealand versus South Africa, you look at South Africa and they look noticeably
larger
and just stronger than New Zealand. But again, New Zealand were able to get the win on that one.
Now, the final, to me, it hurts to say this, but it felt like England just weren't doing anything.
So, for those who might know, it was South Africa, England. England lost 32-12.
Yes. But to me, it felt like England just weren't really doing anything. It felt like the fire and the intensity and the emotion that came in the semifinals just wasn't quite there like it was the week before. And I think maybe did England play their finals a week early? Did they try? Did they use all of what they had too early? Or did because that's what it looked like to me. And South Africa That's not to say that if England like played more emotionally, they would have won. It's just like saying that it made it much more dominant of a game for South Africa.
Yeah.
It was less of a like competitive matchup.
Watching that game, there was a lot of penalties. There was a
lot of penalties.
And there was a lot of kicking from the tee. So
very true. South Africa didn't score a try until
late in the
second half. Yeah. And wasn't that technically their first try in a World Cup final?
Yeah, that was their first try in a World Cup final.
What we've been emphasizing all tournament was the importance of penalty kicks and the importance of kicking for points. And
Andre Pollard was able to slot 18 points.
Oh my gosh, he's such a good kicker. I mean, he had a few.
He missed one.
But at the same time, like one miss, and still you put up 18 points on the board. Like, without a question, shows that he is a good kicker. And in a World Cup final, he put up 18 points off his boot.
Congratulations.
Yeah, that deserves respect. That is earned respect.
Right.
So, other players on South Africa, though, you've got
Peter Stephen du Toit.
Yes, thank you. Who won Player of the Tournament, right? Yeah, Player of the Year. Excuse
he won
me.
Player of the Year.
Men's Player of the Year. Men's Player of the Year.
Yeah, because also this last weekend was the World Rugby Awards.
Yes.
So
Another South African player who deserves recognition for his work. I believe he played in nine of the 11 games. Yeah.
Yeah, which one of them he didn't play against Canada.
Right.
And I don't remember the other game, but still 9 out of the 11 games he played really, really well. The thing about du Toit is that he's such a
consistent force.
Yeah, and he's known for being really, high work rate, very versatile. Really has come into his own with the 7 jersey, especially over the last 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
But I think Rassie Erasmus really knows him to be a strong defensive force as well as offensive force in his forward pack.
And Rassie Erasmus winning Coach of the Year.
Yeah, he won Coach of the Year. So South Africa came away with 4 awards this last weekend.
Yeah,
they won the World Cup. Their Team of the Year.
Which makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense. They won the World Cup.
Yeah.
Rassie Erasmus is the Coach of the Year, and then Stephen du Toit is the Player of the Year.
Really a dominant year from that program.
And then if I could give out a 5th award, I would give out a 5th award for Sia Khaleesi as Captain of the Year. Because he has been having hit. So
a leader to be.
When Rassie Erasmus took over the job, in the last couple years ago, he made Sia Khaleesi the first black South African captain in history.
Mm-hmm.
So, with this history of South Africa, that has a lot of implications on it. And for Sia Khaleesi to be the leader that he is, go into this World Cup and have them win the World Cup, that's a great story.
Mm-hmm.
And
absolutely.
You talk Sia Khaleesi is an absolute inspiration for South Africans because he went Rassie Erasmus talked in an interview about him that he went from basically rags to riches with this. He didn't even have boots to play rugby. That's where he started off with. And for him to go from those, from basically that, from, playing backyard rugby without boots to being able to play at Gray's High School, which is known for South Africans, for building up South African players and to go into play to play it for internationally. He got a scholarship to go play there and then make it into play Super Rugby and then go on to be the captain for South Africa. That's fantastic. That's a great way. That's a great story.
Absolutely. I think one of the greatest things for him is like he knows like his goal isn't necessarily to like just win and be the like on the best team and lead the best team, but like he specifically stated that he wants to inspire every kid in South Africa. Like he wants to bring like inspiration and bring a right path for everybody, all the kids in South Africa. And his goal is not just to be for his country and play and win, but also to like make a social impact.
Right. And I think with winning the World Cup, that has made a social impact because now, again, he's the first black South African captain to win a World Cup.
Yeah.
And he's the only one. That's amazing. And, like, one of Rassie Rasmus's, like, in terms of once he got on the team, one of his, like, more social changes is that he wanted more diversity within his team. So originally, South Africa was very, like, white predominant. Mm-hmm. And then he started adding more African players, and so I think currently he's at like 12 or 13. So, congrats to them.
Yeah. So
he completed those goals.
Truly a dominant year for South Africa.
Congratulations, South Africa.
And they deserved the awards that they've earned, and I can't wait to see more out of them come 2020.
Yeah.
And yeah. So, on that note, I think that's a good concluding point for us. And again, we'd love to hear from you all, and we'd love to get some feedback. So please leave your concerns, questions, and your D1A rankings in the comments.
Let us know if you have any opinions with the D1A rankings.
Yeah, clearly you heard some of ours. So yeah, on that note, I'm Ethan Richards. Again.
I'm CJ Bakle. Go watch some rugby this week. The Gallagher Premiership is going on right now.
Yes.
So
which we will hopefully be talking about next weekend.
Plenty of English rugby being played. So go and watch that.
Yeah. So on that note,
thank you.
Thank you, and have a good week.